page 18a. And the Gemara that we learned, we spoke about the law of a shomer, person who is guarding the deceased, and we mentioned that the reason for a shomer from this Gemara seems to be because of mice. Watching, guarding the mace, that the mice should not come and desecrate the body of the deceased. So the way we understood the Gemara, based on the insight of Reb Moshe Feinstein from the Igros Moshe, we understood the Gemara that the concern is not only mice, it's mainly mice, but there is another concern, and the Igros Moshe leaves it a little vague what that concern is, but there definitely is another concern, which either is kavod hames, honor, or to make sure a fire doesn't come, or simply that there shouldn't be a bizoyon or embarrassment for the mace. And because of that, there's a concept of yoytze v'nichnas, that a shomer, the job of the shomer being that there are two reasons for a shomer. One reason of a shomer is for the mice, and for that reason, a shomer, the guard, would need to be there continuously to make sure mice don't come. And when a person is around, generally mice don't come, or if they do come, you chase them away. But generally they're afraid of people, and that for that reason of mice, it would be a reason why a shomer should constantly be watching, guarding the deceased. For the reason of kavod hames, honoring the dead, or to make sure there's no fire doesn't come and possibly would, to
Rabbi, did you say yoitzer v'hiknis?
Yoitze v'nichnas. Yoitze means to go out, and nichnas means to come in. And what that means is that if not for the problem of mice, the other problems, the other necessities to guard would not obligate you to guard the deceased constantly. It would only obligate one to come in and out. That's called yoitze v'nichnas. To come in and out, be there, randomly or seldom. You don't have to be constantly there. You pop in, pop out, and so on. And this way, if a fire were to break out, you would catch it, hopefully in time. If someone was coming if people were coming, ganovim, robbers, or mischievous people were coming, you would be able to chase them away. You would come, you would pop in and out, you'd be able to hopefully be there when necessary.
If anything, right.
If there was a flood coming, you would realize something hopefully before it desecrated the deceased. So there's two, but basically the point is that there's more than one reason to be a shomer, but each reason has its limits. The mice has its limits in a place where there's no mice. And the other reason would have its limits, that you're not constantly obligated to be there. It would only be yoitze v'nichnas, you would be pop in and out. Yes, Robert.
Just if we can have this discussion now or whenever, but I'm always curious between the difference of the value of our body when there's a shomar, and then when the Mashiach comes, then we all will rise again, versus that of the neshama, which is our essence, if it's our conscious essence, or whatever we define it. So is there a differentiation in the value of the body versus the neshama, or they're complementary to each other? Do you understand what I'm trying to express, Rabbi?
Well, I think you're asking the
Because you're in the
difference between the body
now,
and the
but
soul,
even before it,
what lives
it's
on,
rough.
and where do they both go, and
It's not like
how do
before.
they?
Rabbi Phyllis is talking. Can we
Yeah.
mute people,
Yeah,
please?
let's mute everyone. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You,
So Robert was just wondering how it works. In other words, we're guarding the body. What about the soul? Is anyone guarding the soul? And what happens? Where does the soul go? Where does what you know? What's our belief in the body? What happens to the body, and so on. And basically, the body, there is a bone in the body that God is going to resurrect the dead from. It's called the luz bone. And that's why people are very careful to eat malava malka, the meal after Shabbos, because that's supposed to give energy to that bone, to the luz bone. It feeds the luz bone. So it's called the meal after Shabbos, which we're, interestingly enough, it's called, we are malava, we are escorting the Shabbos. So it's the concept of escorting that we make a meal out of. We're escorting Shabbos and we're making a meal, and that meal is supposed to give sustenance to the luz bone, and the luz bone is the bone that the body is going to build. It's going to be built from when Mashiach comes. So we're going to have a very renewed body. It's going to be a renewed body. So the body after a person dies, although it's, although we never want to desecrate the body, and we have, it's considered a terrible sin to even an autopsy is against Jewish law unless it's obligated, unless there's some benefit, because any even slight wounding of the body is considered desecrating the body. And we have tremendous respect for the body that housed the soul and fulfilled the mitzvahs and so on. And so the body is, but ultimately the body is buried, and it naturally decomposes. And then, but the luz bone, when Mashiach comes and we're going to have the tchias hamesim, the resurrection of the dead, the body will be renewed. It will be built up.
Where's the location of that bone?
It's somewhere in the back of the neck.
Okay.
Now, I am told that even after they do cremation, like in I'm told from someone who was a Holocaust survivor that when they, in the crematoriums in Auschwitz, there was, even after they burned the bodies, there was always a little bone. There was certain bones that did not get burned. There were certain small little, maybe pebble size things that were not able to be destroyed, and that's probably the luz bone. Yes, Ben.
Rabbi, I heard the same thing. I heard the same thing, and it was told to me that it's the bottom bone of the spine, the last little bone of the spine that is never burned. It's always left.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to look it up. I always remember it being the neck, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, thank you, Ben. Yes, Robert.
Just one other question. I'm concerned. We use the term that has essentially been, resurrection to me is a non-Jewish term because of the issue with Christ. And so I guess the question is, do we have our own term for that is not corrupted by the Christianity's use of the word resurrection versus a Jewish term that would be, to me, more kosher than having to say resurrection? I find it offensive to me in any case. I don't know what other people's are, but with our training now and education, so I'm very sensitive to how we as Jews have been co-opted or just whatever. We don't have our own define of the coming of the uplifting of the body. of whatever. So I don't know if the rabbis have ever discussed that or not, but it's just has come to my mind.
There are cases where if the goyim take on a certain custom, that it becomes prohibited among the Jewish people. So, for example, Shavuos, there used to be a custom to fill the synagogues with trees and maybe flowers, and because the goyim somehow took on this type of a tradition for their holiday, became prohibited. At least many synagogues stopped doing it, and there's discussion if it should be completely stopped because it became chukos hagoyim. So I hear where you're coming from. I personally am not aware of how the other religions stole this resurrection word, but the idea in Hebrew is tchias hamesim, and I guess they took it from us because we're the we have it in the Torah, and it was always part of Yiddishkeit. It's always part of Yiddishkeit. Even in the Oz Yashir, we say Oz Yashir. Then they will sing the Shira, and it's referring to when Mashiach comes. We're going to then Oz, meaning the future. So it's a hint to Tchias HaMesim. In any event, the resurrection is. I'm not sure if there's any other word that's used, but so the idea of the body. Now the soul goes to heaven, or it gets judged after a person passes away. The body is buried, and the soul, it says, cannot be at rest until the body is at rest, because there was such a relationship during the lifetime that the body has with the soul, that the soul will not be at rest unless the body is at rest, and the body is at rest when it's buried, and it's as the mitzvah is, they'll offer tashuv, that the body comes from earth and it returns to earth, and that's the natural way that it decomposes. So coming back to what we were talking about the mitzvah of shomer, and we mentioned that there's more than one reason, and it's based on this Gemara, really. And the Surah is very interesting to how the Igros Moshe proves it from this Gemara, based on the opinion of Ben Azai, that Ben Azai mentions that if they are both in a boat, they can both leave to pray, and they don't have to worry about being a shomer. They could temporarily leave, and based on that, why it talks about, why doesn't he just say that you don't have to be a shomer on a boat? He doesn't say that. He says you still need to be a shomer, even though there's no mice on boats, according to him. You're not suspecting that there'll be mice on the boats, but nevertheless, he says that they're shomers. They are allowed to leave and go and pray, and they're allowed to leave together and pray. So he proves from there that that there must be a second reason for being a shomer, and that's why even on a boat where he's not concerned about mice, there still needs to be a watching, but it doesn't have to be continuous. And the reason it doesn't have to be constant is because the reason why it doesn't have to be constant is because the other reasons don't necessitate that. The other reasons for watching is good enough to be yotzei v'nichnas, coming and going, popping in and out. So that was the opinion we mentioned yesterday from the Igros Moshe. And what is interesting is that this is the source, and I see even in this English book called Mourning and Halacha. I just checked it up. The halacha is people who are watching the deceased, those watching, if only one person is watching over the deceased, he is exempt from reciting the Shema, praying, putting on tefillin, and all other positive commandments. He is not allowed to be strict with himself and perform mitzvahs, even if he is sitting farther than 4 cubits from the deceased. So this is seems like a more of a practical halacha guide for today's day and age. And I didn't ask the Chevra Kadisha the question, but I see from this book, it seems like that's the final halacha. You don't always know that if it's the final halacha just because we saw it in the Gemara. But from this book, I'm guessing that at least it is one of the accepted halachas. I don't know for sure if they include all opinions here, but at least it is one of the accepted halachas. Yes, Ezra.
So isn't this osek b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah, that this is basically, since you're the shomer, you're doing a mitzvah of watching the body, so therefore you're patur from doing these other things?
It is, and that's the reason for Isaac. That's the reason why he would be exempt. But when you take the halachas that we learn in the Gemara, there are sometimes things don't apply nowadays as they applied then. For example, you may say, well, it's not as common nowadays to have mice running around if we put out mice traps, or you may find that there might be some exception. That nowadays we don't do things, which we'll soon see similar things in the next Gemara. So when you see it in a sefer, that's more like the practical guide for the year 2020. So you sort of it means something different than when it just says it in the Gemara.
Rabbi, are there evil spirits that try to take something from a deceased body, that try to, in other words, right now the person is deceased, their soul is not at rest, it's still active. So are there spirits that try to take the soul or do harm to the soul?
So there is an opinion from the Chachmas Adam that he says, is it possible that they're really arguing about mice on boats? Could there be an argument? Are there mice or not mice? I mean, is that what the rabbis are going to argue about? Could it be? It's a fact. It's either yes or no. It's not like, how could they argue? Let them ask the captains, and therefore he explains that what we're concerned about is not only mice but also ruchais hatuma, evil spirits, impure spirits, and that's the wicked mice that we're talking about.
Well, how do you see them?
Inside water, just 1 second. Inside water, he says, everyone agrees there is no evil spirits. And the opinion of the Tanakama, the first opinion, that holds that in water they're not able to rule the evil spirits, but in a boat, even though it's on the water and the boat itself doesn't accept impurity, but they could overtake the dead body. They could rule, so to speak, over the dead body. And Ben Azai says that since the boat is pure, that the evil spirits would not be able to have any impact on the mace, on the deceased. So this is more of a spiritual concept. According to this opinion, the reason for being a shomer is not only for physical reasons or honor for the deceased, but it's also connected to these more like spirits, like being from evil spirits. That would be another reason why one would be a shomer. So I didn't see it in other sources, but I see this one source, the Chachmas Adam, mentions that. So it sounds like an interesting idea, and thank you, Susan, for bringing it up. Yes, Ben. Ben?
I wanted to know, when does the neshama leave when does the neshama leave the body? Is it immediate upon death or a little bit afterwards? Or
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? I don't know. I believe it's right after upon death, but let's see if we ever come across it. As I always say, we have we do about a page a week almost. So in about 49 years, I hope we'll finish the Shas together.
Yeah.
So stick with me as long as you can. And hopefully we'll find out.
But as they
Okay.
say, from your mouth to God's ear,
Because I
right?
know they say that then the neshama is actually, the neshama is surrounding you after death, right? Before it goes out, it still surrounds you for a while.
Uh-huh.
Or part of it is surrounding you and part goes up.
Uh-huh. There are different levels of the neshama, and some of it. I mean, there is a concept that there's one of the levels of the
Right.
neshama stays with the body, near the body, hovers over the body. So I'm not exactly sure to what extent. I mean, the truth is, even at birth, it's a little unclear when does the neshama enter the body, because there's levels that hover over the body even at birth, and according to some opinions, the neshama doesn't really enter the body until a person is 13 years old. So when you talk about the neshama leaving the body,
The full neshama.
what is that?
The full neshama.
The full neshama. So it doesn't internalize completely, but partially it comes to the
enters
body.
at 13, you say.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting in the beginning at birth. It's not exactly
Right.
it's not so black and white. There's like different stages. Yes, Ruvain, did you want to say something?
Yes, please. So my wife and I learned in the class that after the death, chas v'sholom, of a Jew, the neshama leaves in stages. Then initially when the person first dies, and then there's after the first week of Shiva, another level of the neshama leaves, and then after 30 days with Shloshim, another level leaves. Then after 11 months, when you complete the Kaddish, another level leaves, and so, there's always some that remains though. So some piece remains.
Thank you, Ruvain. Ben, you have your chavrusa right here, Ruvain. You and Ruvain. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to continue, and we're at the about 15 lines up from the bottom of the page. Tanu Rabbanon. Oh, we got to mute everyone. Okay, Tanu Rabbanon. The rabbis learned. If a person brings atzomais, bones, from place to place, hareza lo yitneim bidiskia. This person should not place them in a diskia, which is a leather package, leather pouch. And according to some opinion, diskia or duskia, du means two, and sakia means a pouch or a sachet or sack. So what this would mean is that he shouldn't put them in this duskia in v'yitnem al gabe chamor and place them on top of a donkey. Now, if you say it means two, if that's the meaning of this, like two sacks, what it sounds like is that it's laid upon the animal with two pockets on each side of the animal. So it sounds like it's a leather
Ouch.
a saddle, like with almost like it's a leather piece that's large enough to lay over both sides of the animal, and has like two pockets in it. So it becomes like it's like a double pouch sack. And so this diskia, you're not allowed to place the body in it, v'yirkav aleihem, and ride on it. Mipnei, because shenoyeg behem minig bizoyin. It is a bizoyin. It is a desecration, an embarrassment for the deceased. So that's not the way to. You shouldn't sit on it. It's not honor. It's a bizoyin, the opposite of honor. It's a disgrace. If the person is worried because of the goyim, he's in a dangerous area. He has to rush and get out of there. He puts it. He wants to just put it down, place it there, and rush out. It's dangerous. They list him, or he's afraid of the robbers and thieves. They might come and steal it, think that there's gold there, or think that there might be some cavities with gold fillings or something. Who knows what they're thinking, but they might make problems to list him. Mutter, it is allowed for him to put it there and sit on it and travel. So if you translate this as just a sack, then it might actually mean sitting on it. If it's translated as the way I explained it, that it's like a double sack, it sounds like his legs are going to be on it. They'll be leaning on it, because it's going to be on both sides, probably where he puts his legs. So it's considered a disgrace. But however, if he's afraid of the goyim, the non-Jews that might or bother him in those days, obviously that was their concern. There was a lot of anti-Semitism, and they list him, or he's worried about the thieves, the robbers. So it would be allowed for him to even sit on it. Now, the same law, the same way the rabbis said regarding bones, kach amru, the same thing they said b'sefer Torah regarding a Torah scroll. So the same rule that applied to deceased would apply to a Torah scroll. Now, what does that mean? So there's two ways of understanding that. Our Brisa, which we just read, said two laws. One was what's prohibited, and the other is what's permitted. So the question is, what is the Sefer Torah case? Again, we said it's prohibited to sit on it, but it's permitted in a case where you're in danger, or the deceased is in danger of them stealing the bones or so on. So the question is, what are we referring to when it says a Sefer Torah? Is it saying that the law is that you're not allowed to sit on top of a Sefer Torah when you're riding? Or is it saying that if you're in a place of ganovim, of thieves, or in a place where there's goyim, it's dangerous, you would be allowed to sit on a Sefer Torah? So the Gemara asks, Ahai, what is the law of the Sefer Torah? What is it going on? What is it referring to when it says the same law that applies to the bones applies to a Sefer Torah? Ahai, which part is it going on? On the first part or on the later part? On the Reisha? Reisha means the beginning part of the Brisa, or on the Seifa, the end part of the Brisa? So the Gemara says, Ahai, what is it going on? Ilema, if you will say Aresha, it's going on the first part. Peshita, it is obvious. Of course, you're not allowed to sit on top of the Sefer Torah. Mi gara Sefer Torah me atzamais. Would a Sefer Torah be any worse than atzamais, than bones, than the bones of a deceased person? Would that be any worse? So the Gemara assumes that's so obvious that it wouldn't have to say the same law would apply to a Sefer Torah. Ella, rather, a Seifa must be talking about the Seifa, the end part. What does the end part say? The end of the Brisa said that if you're worried because of Nachrim and because of Listim, then it would be permissible if you're worried about because they're in a dangerous area, and you would be allowed by atzamais, by bones. The same thing would apply to a Sefer Torah, that you would be allowed to sit on it, even though it's a Sefer Torah. So that's the Gemara. The question, Tosfos has a question here. He has two questions. Tosfos asks, what would be the din putting the bones in like a backpack and putting them behind you, or putting a Sefer Torah behind you? You're riding on a donkey. On the one hand, putting it behind you is not so respectful. It's not exceedingly respectful. On the other hand, you're riding on a donkey. It's probably the most practical way to ride is putting it in some type of a backpack type of a way to hold it. It's the best way you could hold it. You're riding. I mean, it's not it's not like this is a 5-star type of automobile with all different places with a trunk and everything. So the question is, would you be allowed to do that? So Taisva says, and he has a source in Yerushalmi, that you would be allowed to place the bones in a backpack type of a thing, put it behind in back of you, hang it in back of behind you, and the same thing would apply to a Torah scroll. Tosfos has a second question, and that is that the Gemara seems to be very obvious when it talks about the Sefer Torah, because the Gemara says that if there are goyim that are going to cause problems, you're in a dangerous area, you would be allowed to sit on the Sefer Torah, just like you would be allowed to sit on a body. You would be allowed to sit on a Sefer Torah. Now, Tosfos says, isn't that obvious? Number one, if you're allowed to for a body, for sure you're allowed to for a Sefer Torah. And second of all, what would it be better? For you to sit on it, or for the Sefer Torah to be taken by people that are going to burn it, or who knows what they're going to do with the Torah scroll? Of course, it's better for you to sit on the Torah and to get to a safe area than to let it get desecrated by the goyim. So Tosfos says it's pretty obvious. Why would the Brisa say also a Torah scroll? It would be very obvious that. So Tosfos wants to combine these 2 points. Number one, about hanging the Torah behind you, and number two, what the Brisa is really saying. And Tosfos wants to say that's what it's really emphasizing. That if you look at the Brisa, it says you're not allowed to sit on it. You're not allowed to sit on the yatzomes, the bones, but you would be allowed to put it behind you. That would be okay, because if that would be prohibited, it should have said that. So it's implied from the Brisa that you are allowed to hang it behind you. And so then it says that if you're in a dangerous area, you are allowed to sit on it, and that applies to a Sefer Torah as well. What that means is that the leniencies of bones would apply to a Sefer Torah as well. That's what the Gemara means, that it's going on the Sefer, that any of the leniencies of the bones would apply to a Sefer Torah, and therefore the leniency that we know of that comes out of the first part would also apply, that it's only prohibited to sit on it, but you would be allowed to hang it behind you in like a backpack type of thing, even though it's behind you, but you would be allowed to do that for a Sefer Torah. Now, Tosfos is aware of the fact that there are other opinions about this. If you're allowed to place a Sefer Torah behind you and hang it there, would that be respectful or not? Would that be allowed? Tosfos says that even though you might argue with me regarding a Sefer Torah, but regarding a book of the prophets or the writings, that for sure would be permissible. Because we're only talking, but here they specifically mention a Sefer Torah, implying that other books would for sure be permissible. Maybe a Torah would be an issue. Maybe a Torah would be an issue. But other books would definitely be permissible. But Tosfos concludes that really even a Sefer Torah, this would be allowed. And Tosfos says that a sack full of books, Sfarim, holy books, and Atzomes, bones, you are mafshila li'achayra. Let me mute everyone. I don't know why we're getting a lot of background noise here. So Tosfos concludes you are allowed to be mafshilon la'achayra have it hanging from behind you, and you could ride. So that's the way. That is how Tosfos understands the Gemara to be emphasizing that would be leniency of the Gemara, that a person could hang it behind them and would be allowed for them to ride like that on their donkey. Okay, so that's the end of this little piece of Gemara. Let's continue with the next Gemara. Amar Rechava says, Amar Reb Yehuda, in the name of Reb Yehuda. On the side it says, Amar Reb Yehuda, Amar Rav. There's another version that has that Reb Yehuda said this in the name of Rav. Kol Haroya Hames, whoever sees a deceased person, ve'ena melavehu, and doesn't escort him, oiver mishum loyeg larosh cherei poisehu. He has transgressed this law that we mentioned yesterday, that a person is mocking a poor person and he is blaspheming his creator. Because when a person sees the deceased and doesn't go along with the group that's escorting the deceased, and he doesn't escort him as well, he is basically implying that he doesn't believe that Hashem is going to give him a reward. Because when you escort the deceased, you are not expecting any reward, because the deceased, even though he might know that you're there, but he is not able to give you anything. He's dead. He's going to be buried, and you're not going to get anything in return. That's why we call it a chesed shel emes. There's a lot of organizations that deal with Mesim and so on. They call themselves chesed shel emes. The reason why they call themselves chesed shel emes, they're a kindness of truth, meaning that they're not expecting anything in return, because you don't really get anything in return on a practical way, in a physical way, because of your mitzvah that you do with the deceased, because no one is there to reward you. And the only thing is, you trust that Hashem will give you your reward, and that means that would be, in this case, the opposite of what the person is doing. He's saying, I am not escorting the deceased, because we're assuming the reason is because he doesn't really believe that Hashem is going to reward him. So therefore, he's blaspheming Hashem. So he's loyeg larosh, he's mocking the poor by saying, I don't care to escort you, because I'm not going to get anything in return. And what he's basically saying is, I don't trust Hashem that he's going to repay me. V'im hilvehu maschara, if he does escort the deceased, what is his reward? Amar Ravasi, olav hakosav aimer, Ravasi says about him, about a person who does escort the deceased, about him, the verse says, Malve Hashem choinein dal. If a person has mercy on the poor, he is lending Hashem, meaning he has mercy on the poor. He is considered to be lending Hashem, and that's what the verse says literally. Malvei Hashem, he is lending Hashem. And I think the meaning of the verse is that when you have mercy on the poor, you have compassion on the poor, you're basically lending Hashem. Hashem will ultimately repay you, because you're not getting anything back from the poor, but you will get repaid from Hashem. So you're Malvei Hashem. But the Gemara here is learning it changing around the vowels under it, and it's saying Melave Hashem. That if you're Melave the mace, if you are escorting a deceased, it is like you are escorting Hashem. That is the reward for escorting the deceased, is that you are considered to escort Hashem. A person who has compassion on an evyoin, on a poor person, is considered to have honored Hashem. Mechabda, you are honoring Hashem. So that is this Gemara is emphasizing how important it is to escort the mace, which is a mitzvah to walk after the, at the end of the funeral, when they walk the deceased to the burial. So if you walk along with them at least maybe 4 cubits, 6 to 8 feet, you have fulfilled the mitzvah of melava, which is the same word as levaya. Levaya means a funeral. It really literally means escort. and that's a mitzvah not only for a deceased, it's a mitzvah to escort a person who comes to comes to visit you, or comes to you for a Shabbos meal or something. The mitzvah to walk outside with them when they leave. You walk outside with them a few feet. It's called levoya, to do this, to do the mitzvah of escorting them. So that's the mitzvah here. We're talking about that if a person doesn't escort a deceased, he is transgressing loyeg larosh, mocking the poor, and chere feseyu. He is.
Somebody's talking on their phone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see. I don't see what the.
Oh, this has been right on it. Let me take this one. Yeah.
Trying to see where the sound is coming from. Oh, maybe the Toshiba.
Yeah, the Toshiba is open.
Is that it? That
Yeah.
looks like there's the.
Yeah. So
Let's
I have one question. Maybe we'll cover it or not. But so, what is the mitzvah of when somebody is finally in the ground, that everybody takes takes some dirt in the shovel, and then the ritual of of shoveling, a symbolic in burying the deceased?
I'm sorry, I missed something about burying in the
So
shovel.
again, no, I just, what is the definition of, when we're at a cemetery,
Uh-huh.
they lower the person down, and then each one of us takes a shovelful of dirt and throws it upon. So what the significance, and again, it's a mitzvah to do that?
Well, yeah, that is part of the mitzvah of vel afar tashuv, that a person returns to the earth. So we're fulfilling the mitzvah of burial by participating in that, and it's just part of participating.
process.
I don't know how many shovels you need to do to I guess even one you fulfilled that mitzvah. But if there's not enough people there, then it's obviously the burden is on whoever's there to help out and help fulfill the mitzvah.
I mean, does it deal with anything, again, you're helping them to return back to the earth, or that it gives them eternal rest or anything like that?
Well, it's multiple benefits. The burial has multiple benefits. So you're participating in that. In other words, just on a simple level, you're helping out the people who are there at the funeral by making it by participating in just participating in the funeral is an honor for the deceased, and it's honor for the relatives there. Buried by shoveling, you're helping the deceased be buried back to the return to the earth. The soul is able to have it's able to relax, to be at rest in heaven. The people there that need to help out, that are there helping out the burial, everyone is helping each other because you're helping them with the actual burial. So it's the relatives are happy that that their relative is being buried. So there's numerous mitzvahs that are being fulfilled and benefiting many people.
Can it be also interpreted as it's like our finality of saying goodbye to the deceased because we're helping to bury them?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
Good question. Yes, Reuben.
Rabbi, it says.
So I just wanted to make a comment on the first thing you said, Robert. You mentioned the word symbolic. I don't think we have anything in Yiddishkeit that is symbolic. I think everything we do is real, and the idea of symbolism is not what we're about at all. I can't think of anything we do that's symbolic of something else. We're making kiddush, whatever we're doing is real, and we're connecting to Hashem, we're connecting to each other and helping each other. Not symbolically.
Okay.
Reuben, you're going to be answering my questions in the future. If anyone has questions, we're going to let Reuben.
No.
Ezra.
Yeah.
Ezra.
The reason why we bury and we don't let, for example, the people who work in the cemetery to dump the entire load of dirt is because I think it's a bizayon if you turn it the process over to a non-Jew.
Good
And
point.
so
Very
therefore,
good.
we therefore do it. Now, I don't know if many people pay attention. I know that the majority may have paid attention, but how to use the shovel properly in order to shovel. I mean, there's the first case you take a little bit with the shovel backward, and put it into the kever, and then then after that you use the shovel in a normal manner. So perhaps maybe Rabbi Smith can talk a little bit about the reason we do it that way, so that people understand that next time when they go, they do it in the proper manner.
Ezra, okay, yeah, a good point. First of all, about the not having the people, not having others bury. There is a concept of we bury our own, which is honoring. It's showing that it's a special honor, especially that we don't just leave our deceased for others to go bury. We bury our own, meaning the Jewish people feel. We feel it's an honor that we should partake in it and not just leave it for someone. And then the concept that Ezra mentioned about using the back of the shovel, it's brought down such a tradition, like a minhag, that it's the first shovel, they use the back side of the shovel to show that this is not everyday activity. This is something that we are uncomfortable with and hesitate to do. So that would be the reason for that. Okay, we're going to continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says that this is a story. Reb Chia v'Reb Yonasan have a shakli v'azli. Reb Chia and Reb Yonasan were going the Beis HaKvaros in a cemetery. Have a kashadya tchalta de Reb Yonasan. The techelas of Reb Yonasan. What is the techelas? Techelas is another word for tzitzis, because in the olden days they used to have a certain string or two strings or four strings were dyed with a bluish, greenish type of dye that was made from the blood of a fish or some type of a snail, and this was called the techelas, and it was very hard to get. In fact, this creature was only found once in many years, and so it was expensive. And in today's day and age, there were some rabbis that tried to travel and try to find what specific animal this was from, but it never became fully accepted. You will find in some shuls people have talesim or have tzitzis that have this bluish string, but it's not that popular, and it definitely was not accepted by the majority of Klal Yisrael, that whatever these rabbis came up with to figure out what the dye was, that it wasn't accepted as the final conclusion. And so therefore nowadays our tzitzis is all white, but in generations back, or I should say centuries back, they used to have a dye called tchelas. And so sometimes the tzitzis is termed techelta, the tchelas means the tzitzis. So Reb Chia and Reb Yonasan were going in the Beis HaKvaros in a cemetery, and the techelas of Reb Yonasan, the tzitzis of Reb Yonasan were dragging on the graves. So Amar le Reb Chia, Dalye, Reb Chia said, lift them up. Kadesh lo yoimru, so that the deceased's don't say, Lemachar ba'in etzleinu. Tomorrow they're going to come by us. V'yachshav macharfen aisanu, and now they are mocking us. They are making fun of us. So Amar le, so Reb Yonasan answered Reb Chia. He said to Reb Chia, Mi yadi kulei, do they really know so much? Do they know what's going on? Do they see my tzitzis? Do they is this bothering them? Doesn't it say that the Mesim don't know anything? Amar lay, so Reb Chia answered him back, Im karisa, if you learned, loy shanisa, you did not review what you learned a second time. Im shanisa, if you reviewed what you learned, loy shilashta, you didn't review it a third time. Im shilashta, if you reviewed it a third time, loy pirshu lacha, they did not explain it to you well. They obviously, didn't explain to you. Ki hachayim yoidim sheyamusu. It says, the living know that they will die. And what does it mean here, the living know that they will die? It means that tzaddikim, we use the term chayim, the living, but it really refers to the righteous. The righteous know that they will die, meaning they prepare themselves throughout their life because they know that they will die, and they take that to heart, and they control themselves from any sins. And so when it says the Mesim don't know anything, that would mean the wicked don't know anything. They never think about death. So the righteous constantly are aware, they're aware that they will die, and therefore they control themselves. And the wicked don't think about anything, and therefore they don't control themselves at all or enough. And so what Reb Chia is answering Reb Yonasan is that you brought a verse that says that the dead don't know anything. That verse really means the wicked, and it's talking about wicked people during their lifetime even. And the verse that says the living know things, and that verse is really talking about righteous people, and it's referring to righteous people even when they're dead, they're called chayim. So what Reb Chia is saying is chayim, living, are righteous people, and they're alive continuously. They never really die. And wicked people, even in their lifetime, they're really considered dead. And that's why we use the term hamesim for wicked people and chayim for righteous people. Because wicked people are always dead, even in their lifetime, they're dead. And righteous people are alive, even in their death, they're called alive. So, Elu tzadikim, this refers to tzadikim, shebemisasan nikru chayim, that even in their death, they're called alive. And it brings a verse from the book of Samuel, Shenemar, as it says, Ubnayahu ben Yehoyada ben Ishchai. Ubnayahu ben Yehoyada, this man was known to be a very righteous man, a big, great scholar, and a consultant on the council for King David. He was Ben Ishchai, the son of a live person. That means even after his father died, he was called Ben Ishchai, the son of a live person. Rav Pa'olim did many great deeds. Mekabatzel, from Kabatzel, Huhika Shnei Ariel, or Shine Ariel. Let me see what the vowel is for this verse. Is it Shnei or Shine? Maybe Shnei. I guess both. It must mean Shnei. Shnei Ariel. Both. So the literal translation is he smote the two lions of Moab. V'hu yarad v'hika es ha'ari, and he went down and smote the lion b'say chabar in the pit b'yom hashalag, on the cold day. So we're going to bring a source from this verse. It's going to bring a proof, not a source, bring a proof from this verse that Ben Ishchai, that his father is called Chai, even though he died. That's what we're basically proving from this verse. But while the Gemara proves that from the verse, it also is going to expound on this poetic verse. So the verse literally the verse means that Benayahu, the son of Yehoyada, the son of a living man, he struck down the two commanders of Moab, and he went down and slew a lion in a pit. So on a day of snow, on a b'yom hashalach, on a day of snow. So the Gemara now expounds on this verse. So let's turn the page. We're on page 18b. Ben Ishchai, he was the son of a living man. Atu kuli alma b'nei mesuninu. Is everyone else the son of dead people? Ella ben Ishchai, rather, what does it mean he was a ben Ishchai? He was the son of a righteous person, sha'afilu b'meisasai karoi chai, someone that even in their death, they were called alive. That's what it means. And Rav Pa'alim Mikabatzel, he was a man of great deeds from Kabatzel, Sheriba V'Kibetz Payalim L'Torah, that he gathered people to learn Torah. Or increased and accomplished achievements in Torah. If you look at the word kabatzel, it's a mixture of two words, kibetz and kel. So if you look at that word, that's what the Gemara is really expounding upon. Rav Pa'alim mikabatzel, that means the Gemara is expounding on that word, and it's saying that he was kibetz, he gathered, he accomplished for Hashem, for Hashem's sake. V'kibetz payalim l'Torah, for the Torah. And v'hu hika es shnei Ariel Moav. He smote the two lions of Moab. What does that refer to? And the two commanders, the lion is generally referred to someone strong, but what it means here is that he didn't leave anyone that was comparable to him in the first Beis Hamikdash or in the second Beis Hamikdash. That means he was he put everyone else to shame, so to speak. He was a great scholar. And he went down and smote the lion in the pit on the day of the snow. Ika da Amri, some say what he did was the Tavar Gazize de Barda. He broke the pieces of barad, of hail, which literally means, which means, that's what it means literally, but it means like ice, that he broke the ice, v'nachas v'taval, and he lowered himself and went to the mikvah. Now that is quite an accomplishment, to go into the ice. I mean, this is like the people in Russia. They were so moiser nefesh. They risked their lives to go to mikvah. You have to understand that this was not a obligatory mikvah dip. This was just to be more pure. And he went and he did that on a snowy day to go on the ice, break the ice, to go and dip in the mikvah. This is a huge accomplishment of his, huge mitzvah. Ika da Amri, and some say that he was the Tana Sifra de Veirav B'Yoma de Sisu, that it was on a winter day, a short day, and it means that he accomplished a huge amount, that he studied the entire Sifra de Veirav on this winter day, and that's what it means B'Yom Hashelek, on the day of the day of snow. It was a short day, but he still accomplished this huge amount. Okay, so we're going to continue Mitzvah Shem on Monday. Sunday we have a shear, but we don't learn Gemara. So we'll see you all on Sunday, Mitzvah Shem. I want to wish all of you a very good Shabbos, and those.